How are you, Kingdom Diplomats? Just wanted to stop in here real quick while some things are on my mind. I like to do it when it's fresh. Just sitting here on the back patio. Want you guys to drink in some of the scenery. There's a method to why I'm doing this. The breeze out here is probably about 1 to 5 miles per hour, off and on. You can probably hear birds chirping in the background. Skies has some clouds. Unfortunately, it has some chemtrails up there, chemical trails. That's a whole nother topic. Green grass, right? You can hear some of the cars and everything like that. So I did that for a reason, because that's something that our soul can, drink into. Um, and I wanted to solicit some type of, calmness, peace, because if you notice, in our lives, it's harder to listen to the things that we need to listen to, because distractions is a thief, not only to our joy, but it's a thief to our vision and assignment, and the reason why we're here on this planet, which is the cornerstone of my podcast. Those 5 vital questions that most human beings don't know, and as far as what they need to know, what we need to know, spiritually, mentally, and physically, which obviously encompasses finances and everything like that. So I say that to say this. So, emotions, we all have them, right? That's normal. Um, Took me years to kind of figure some of this stuff out, and I'm still learning, about, you know, the whole spectrum of emotions and how to, just capture the moment. You've heard of that saying, but also how to, whatever emotion that I'm feeling, asking myself, internally, if I can, if I'm around a lot of people, ask internally to myself, and then externally, okay, why am I feeling like this, right? So here's a tip that I learned. I learned this from some very successful people in different backgrounds, different genres, industries, and everything. And this is kind of like a composite. I can't give you everything that I know in this few minutes, but I can kind of give you some tips, some morsels to kind of chew on, because we're designed where we can. It's kind of like when you look, when you're on your device right now, right? You can't see everything outside of these 4 walls unless I move my camera, right? Up, down, left, and right. I showed you earlier the scenery, right? So that's how our mind works, so we have a monitor and it can't see out those 4 walls. That's why sometimes I drop hints and say, hey, you have to take the news at face value, because outside those 4 screens, you don't know what's going on truly, right? But anyway, that's a whole nother topic in itself on the side. So, the emotions, the whole gambit of emotions that we have now, from A to Z, from whether it be any type of fears, and there's natural fears, I like to say. As a little kid, you're afraid of heights. Um, you pick up a baby, and the baby's just fresh out of the womb, and the baby kind of throws the arms out there, obviously, because the baby has been cooped up. The seed had been cooped up in the environment and in the womb, of the mother. So, that's natural. But other than that, for the most part, loud noises too. But other than that, for the most part, everything else is learned type of fear. So you got anxieties. Anxieties also have they derive from, our gut health. That's very important. If you don't know, your gut health, your microbiome, because your brain is a precursor to your digestive system. That's where most of your immune system lives, right? You got to have a prebiotic, also have the probiotic, and that's something that you need to look up. And because you can't count on your doctor to tell you that, let alone your nurse or your PA, physician's assistant, because guess what? They weren't trained in that area. So they were trained chemical based. So that's why 150,000 people that are on Medicare die every single month. And this is a statistic that you will never see on the news. Die every month from the suggestions of their doctor. I got that from a doctor himself. But anyway, so it's a composite. All of our emotions right now are composite. You know, the brain trust that we have right now, or should I say a stronghold, a system of thoughts that we have right now, come from all the information from our culture, from all the environment that we've learned right now. So, you know, let's say something doesn't go your way, you know, and we've all been there before. We have a goal and objective or something like that, and we don't reach it, and obviously, it's something that we can get frustrated about, we can get angry about. So you can't turn that off. Or even though we have machine-like, I like to say, um, mechanisms, in us. Like for instance, our cells are made up of mostly water, 70, 80, 90% water, but they have atoms in it, right? And those atoms have charges, protons, neutrons, electrons, and everything like that. So in other words, we have an electrical body. So our physical body has trillions of cells, and they are matched, right, with our spirit man, right, which I'll talk about on Tuesday. That's the real you. Say match it cell for cell, and so the information that we're constantly taking in. So you got to keep in mind that we're a triune being: spirit, soul, body, right? So we exist on three different levels: spirit being the true self, soul being our emotion, our will, our emotions, our intellect, our mind, and everything like that. That's where the seat of emotions and decision making sits. And then we have our body, which empowers us to have authority and power on this earth. So you have to turn emotions, I learned. So one of the tips that I use is I have to ask myself verbally, why am I angry? And if I'm around a lot of people, I ask myself internally, okay, why am I angry? It's because I didn't have the power to change that situation, right? And so a lot of that comes from, it could be your environment that you grew up in. It could be somebody said something to you and, sideways, or it's just a myriad of things, right? So the purpose, or should I say the whole reason I'm telling you this, is because, emotions can lead us down the wrong pathway. And that's how the enemy works. And that's the second enemy. If you remember, if you've been following me lately, you'll realize that through my previous talks that mankind's number one enemy is, guess what? Lack of knowledge, lack of information, lack of light, right? And the opposite of light is what? Darkness, ignorance. So that's the battlefield right there, okay? And so with those emotions that we have right now, the system of strongholds, the system of thinking that we have right now, we have to ask ourselves, okay, those questions. Why? What emotion am I feeling right now? Why? And, ask yourself, can you control that? Right? And sometimes because the emotions have been built up, for so many years, you can't expect. That's why I said they have to be turned. They can't just be switched off and on like you do a light, right? So they have to be turned another direction. So you have to literally shift your focus. That's what I've learned. You got to shift your focus. And so your words trump your emotions over time, right? And the more you start practicing this type of stuff consistently, because that's the key, consistently over a period of time, what I've learned is that I can change them quicker, right? Not turn them off and on like a light switch, but I can turn them much quicker, right? So if you're speeding down the road, right, you're going down the road and you got to make a turn quicker, right? So you have to be in a position to know how to do that ahead of time before that turn comes, right? As opposed to somebody else who's traveling a lot slower rate, but when they're turning, they turn slower, right? Therefore, those emotions, hopefully you follow me, those emotions stay with us longer and everything. So, just wanted to drop that nugget um, here while it was fresh on my mind. You can't turn, again, you can't turn your emotions off like a light switch. They have to be turned, and the only way you can do that is you have to internally or verbally ask yourself, what emotion am I feeling? Why am I feeling that? And can I control, what I'm getting angry or anxious about, and so on and so forth. So that's more that's the spirit, that's the soul, and the body. So it takes a while to learn this type of concept. But my upcoming book, I'll talk about that. I'll be doing other things, having other products to help people to do that. And by no means, I'm not, I'm not perfect at it. No person's going to be perfect at it. But when you practice the right things the right way, and you unlock, right, you unlock that, you become free, right? And what I'm talking about is mentally, okay? So hopefully that makes some sense. Just listen to this over and over and over again. Just learn the concept, take some notes, and you'll see what I'm talking about, and practice it, and don't get so much caught up into the moment where you may fail, because I still do. But if you're going to fail forward, don't fail backwards. You know what I'm saying? If you go back, go a step forward. When you fall behind too, just repent. What does repent mean? Change your thinking. Assess the information that you're taking in every day. Do you hop on the phone and you just hop on the phone to gossip? Do you look at things on your phone and on your laptop that are just negative, perverted, disgusting? See, you can tell that. You can tell that in your spirit. There's a mechanism already put inside of us when we were created to tell that, right? It's kind of like I was talking to one of our children, about smiling. Smiling is much easier than frowning. I think it's 7 muscles to smile. When you frown, it's like triple the muscles. So that kind of gives you an inkling, insight as far as how we were created, right? And it's all about focusing on the future. And here's another tip too. You become more joyful. That comes from the spirit part. And you become more happier. That's based upon circumstances. Notice I didn't see happiness has the world says it has to be based. It is based upon circumstances. Oh, this is going great, so I'm happy. Oh, this is going bad, so I'm not happy. No, you can be happy when you've learned how to practice being joyful. Remember, joy is a fruit of the spirit. Happiness is based upon circumstance. That's external. That's based upon sight. See, that's one thing about vision is of the mind, right? So if I'm pursuing my vision, and within my vision there's an assignment, which is a part of my vision that I'm supposed to specifically pursue, right? In other words, I know that I'm an answer to a solution. So you're an answer to a solution in your generation based upon the gift or gifts that you already have, okay? And so when you're pursuing that, joy automatically, like you don't have to work it up, right? It automatically. That's one of the most awesomest words. That's not a real word, but I just said it anyway, right? I like that word, automatic. And actually, when it's automatic, you don't have to think about it, right? Every time you have to think about something, you're using energy. Follow me now, right? So, for instance, if you're driving down the road, let's say your battery, right? And one of your, let's say your regulator, let's say something's pulling electricity and energy from your battery more than it was created to, right? Because each part in that car has certain laws that were manufactured into it, and it's supposed to pull from the battery only an X amount of volts, right? But if it's surpassing or exceeding that capacity, guess what? it's good. It's going to be imbalanced. You understand that? And so, again, when you're pursuing your vision, when you know what your vision is and you know your assignment in that vision, which is your part, and you're pursuing that, circumstances don't matter. Some of the goals that I've hit, circumstances, I mean, they were all, my emotions were all over the place, man. Things were happening with the kids, things were happening with my wife, businesses, this person, that person, neighbors. I mean, all kind of things were happening. But I was so focused on that vision. I was laser focused on that vision, right? And guess what? I still accomplished the goal. And even if I didn't, I got maybe 60%, 50%, 75%, 90% of the goal. And then I look back, because hindsight is always 2020. I was like, if I had been moved by what I saw and felt, I would have stopped short of the finish line. You understand that? Okay, so let me get up out of here. Again, I'll be back on Tuesday at 7 p.m. talking about the spirit man, talking about you, and talking about uh, your power, right? The power that's inside of you and where that power comes from, the source of that power, okay? Because power means, remember, power means to control circumstances. That's why a lot of people commit suicide. A lot of people give up on a relationship. Because that power, they don't have control over that circumstance. And the reason why they don't have control of the circumstance, check this out. Go back. Okay, one step is because they don't have the knowledge. They don't have the right information that gives them light, gets them out of ignorance, and they say, oh, okay, I know what I'm missing. And they apply that, and automatically the key, right, the knowledge unlocks that law, okay, and bam, it happens automatically. You understand what I'm saying? So you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Enjoy your families. Remember, we're always on the clock. Don't take time for granted. Put the main idea. Don't forget, continue to write down your vision. Keep looking at your vision. Get some pictures. Write in detail what your vision is. If you don't know your vision, just let me know. I can, maybe I'll take some time out to kind of go over that and how to find your vision and what your gift is, because your gift makes room for you in this planet. Nothing else does but your gift, right? Not your looks, not your lack thereof, not your education, not your lack thereof, none of that. It's your gift that makes room for you in this planet, because that gift will attract the right audience that you're supposed to be ministering to, so to speak. And ministry is not a religious word. Minister actually is a government word. You can just look it up yourself. But what I'm looking to do is not only create the culture. In order to control the culture around you, you have to learn how to control the culture, understand and control the culture, and apply, which means wisdom, in your mind, the culture. Those 6 inches between your mind. So you guys have a great weekend. I will see you this Tuesday, 7 p.m. And we're going to talk about the spirit and that powerhouse that's inside of you, and the source of that. All right. You guys have a great weekend. Take care.